All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nicole Walker, and I am with University of Florida IFAS Extension in Polk County, right in the middle of the peninsula. I serve as the County Extension Director and 4-H agent and community development on occasion. And I'm very glad to be able to host today's webinar on behalf of the NACDEP Member Services Committee. So I want you to note that today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the NACDEP YouTube channel. At the end of today's session, you will see two links. One will be for a session evaluation for our presenter from Ohio State, as well as a survey for the NACDEP Member Services Committee. So you can provide your feedback on today's session and let us know about topics that you would be interested in hearing about in the future. So at this time, I'd like to present our speaker, Kenzie Johnston. She is a community development educator from Delaware County, Ohio. Her topic today is communicating your message. And Kenzie would like for this to be an interactive discussion. She invites you to put messages, questions, comments in the chat box throughout the presentation, and feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions you may have during the presentation. All right, are there any questions before we get started? All right, with that, Kenzie, you take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole, and welcome and thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon. I know it's cold and below zero in some parts, but we're warm inside of our homes, hopefully, and everyone's doing well. So like Nicole said, I would invite this to be very informal. I haven't taught this virtually before, but typically when I do teach it in person, I like to walk around and engage. And we do have a couple of handouts that I'm gonna drop in the chat during or throughout the presentation today to hopefully get you guys thinking just in the right direction. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. So you might wonder a little bit about me and who I am and why I'm qualified to teach this. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and thank you all for putting in the chat your names and where you're from. That's very useful to me. So I am a graduate of The Ohio State University. My degree is in agricultural communication, and currently working for OSU Extension. So I feel really, really lucky and blessed to be working in Extension and being part of NACDEP and being able to talk to colleagues from across the country today and maybe relate with all of you guys a little bit. A big part of this presentation has to do with being able to be a storyteller, and I believe storytelling is one of the things that I'm passionate about. And I'm passionate about it because I like being able to talk about what it is I do, whether that's in agriculture or community development or making videos, whatever it might be. I always want to put the thing I'm passionate about in a good light. So for example, in my extension office, we make very short videos, and that's kind of the way we have decided to tell our story to stakeholders and others in the community. Just a little bit of a different approach on your traditional extension audiences, but we found that videos have been very useful for us telling stories, and very passionate about that. Also very passionate about agriculture, growing up on a farm, kind of having that farm background, really like to put agriculture in the right light. And this communication piece has just been so interesting to me, because when I think about what it is I do for a living, sometimes I wonder, how do I tell people what it is I do? And I think all of us can relate to that as well. So that's a little bit about me and why I like to do this. And like I said, I hope all of you are here for similar reasons, wanting to be better communicators every day. So a couple session learning objectives that I have today. I hope all of us are able to understand who our stakeholders are. I hope that we can learn the correct time and place to tell our story. I also hope that I can give you a couple tools to help tell your story. I hope to be able to help you communicate your message after today. And the whole learning from one another and having fun are really big things to me. And I think, especially in a virtual environment and especially going through COVID, I think there's so much that we can learn from one another. Whether we've had to adapt to connecting to our stakeholders in different ways, or if we're just still trying to figure out how to connect with those stakeholders or those people in our community that we might not already reach and that we're trying to reach. So I think there's a lot to learn from one another. And I'm also all about having fun, because if we don't have fun, then we just wasted an hour of our time, right? Life is short, and I hope everyone has fun today. So that's what I'm going to start with. And Nicole, this is where we'll go into a breakout room. So I'll give you a second to kind of set that up. When we get to our breakout rooms, I would like each group to kind of pick one of these questions I have here. And we can put these questions in the chat box so we can talk about them in the breakout rooms. But I want to get you guys thinking kind of just like where I'm trying to go with this today. So one of the questions we could answer is, when was the last time you had to explain to someone about your work? What do you do for a living? I think we've all had that question for a time or two. And I actually just had it this morning. Someone came to install countertops in my house, and he was like, well, what do you do? You've been on your computer. Well, what are you doing? And I was like, oh no, I am my own victim at this, right? I think it's incredibly hard. So that's one of the questions I want us to try and answer. Also, can we explain to someone what makes you successful or you and your team successful? And then if you can answer that, how are you defining success? And then that last question we can kind of take a stab at is, does your team have a consistent message? And I understand that we're all part of several different teams, so maybe just one of your teams have a consistent message. So with that, Nicole, if you could put us into breakout rooms for just a couple of minutes to kind of address one of these questions and just get us thinking, that would be great.
Okay, we've got 3 rooms, and hopefully when I press this button, you're going to fly there. Okay, here we go.
All right, welcome back as you guys come back. Oh, I can see Gwen now on her iPhone. Thanks for joining, Gwen. All right, so as you guys come back, I think we probably have everyone back now. Nicole, if you guys kind of want to unmute or maybe put in the chat, feel free, either or, to maybe tell us how you answered one of those questions. I'm interested to hear how that went, and if we had an opportunity to discuss any of them.
I think we didn't have much of time. We were just kind of warming up when we realized it was only 58 minutes. So, I mean, seconds. So just, we actually, part was trying to identify ourselves and where we were coming from. And even to people from, I think it was Penn State, they realized that they were in the same place. So how, again, it depends on what you do. Is kind of, you have to do different layers in explaining where you are, because your area of expertise, where are you located, and then we were in the university. I think that's what we were discussing or sharing with everybody.
Yeah, certainly. And Nicole and I were kind of having that same conversation about how we as community development educators, I think all of us have our own specialization or kind of circle of the world that we live in. And then it's so interesting to me to talk to other people who might not have that specialization the same way we do. But also, I hope it was a chance for you guys to maybe meet one another for the first time. I was also saying that I think it's really hard during COVID to know who is in NACDEP and who is still working, just because we haven't seen each other in so long. So hopefully it was an opportunity to collaborate and say hello to some of your NACDEP pals. So we'll move on to the next slide. And this is one of the handouts that I have that I will share with you guys in just a second. And like I said, if we were doing this in person, I would hand this to you and allow you some time to work on it. So we'll try to do that the same way here virtually. This is just my stakeholders handout. So it kind of gives us an opportunity to sit and think about who those key stakeholders are in our organization, how we would, how the stakeholders would describe our organization, how the general public describes your organization, what your organization's mission statement is, how the general public, how you want the general public to describe you, And then maybe answer if there's any evidence that you can share that illustrates your ability to live up to this description. So I think the whole reason I want you to go through this is because in order for us to be able to craft a message for the public to understand what we do, I think it's important for us to identify the audience that we are trying to reach. So I think a big, maybe like a perception of extension is, well, we don't know that you're there. And I think the first way to answer that is, well, who do you want to know you're here? Right? Like we can't claim that we want everyone to know that we're here, because that's just not an attainable goal. So if we can hone in on who it is we're trying to reach, I think it's much easier for us to craft a message. So I will give you guys just a little bit more time here, and we won't go to breakouts. I just want for you to open this file and take a few minutes to type some answers, just so you're able to begin thinking about who it is you're trying to reach and maybe what it is they think of your organization. So there should be that handout in the chat. Let me know if you guys can't work through that. I'm going to give 10 minutes for us to kind of think about these questions. So if you guys want to turn your cameras off, that's fine. Just so you have a chance to work through this kind of at your own pace. And I think you'll quickly realize that 10 minutes is not anywhere close to enough time to work through this, but I think this will get you headed in the right direction. And obviously all of this stuff is going to be yours to keep, so you'll have time to revisit it when you're done. And yeah, feel free also to keep putting things in the chat. That's great as well. So that's a way we can learn from one another. Nicole, I have to thank you for your little countdown in the chat. That's very helpful to watch. So I'll open it up a little bit for discussion just real quick. What did you guys think of the handout? What did you think of the questions?
Got you thinking.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm glad you said that, because this is one of those things that typically when I hand this to a group, it's like, oh shoot, I haven't actually ever thought about these questions. And I told Nicole it might be a little awkward to sit there for the whole 10 minutes and keep it quiet, but I think it's one of those things that we really need to focus on these questions and take time every now and again to sit down and think about these questions. Who is it we're trying to reach? And what do they think we do? So once again, I thank you for playing my little games with me and doing these, but I think it's extremely beneficial that we seriously take the time to think about these questions. And I'm sure you guys saw at the bottom of the document, there's also some things that talk about what we're giving the audience and what they're actually receiving from us. So one of these things that we can take back to our team, or maybe an organization that we work with, and work them through this exercise. I know me and my team, we worked through it several times, and sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't, just depending on what it is we're trying to get after. So feel free to keep that, and hopefully moving forward, you could use that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about stakeholders that we might work with in the community development world. I know that a lot of us engage with different people depending on what it is we're doing. I think someone mentioned they work with or in the food systems area. So obviously that would look different than a true community outreach. A couple of those here on the screen: clients, investors, academia, partners, local communities, employees. The way I like to think of stakeholders is anybody we're engaging with, whether that's a volunteer, whether it's a township association, whether it's Chamber of Commerce, anybody who we're working with one-on-one, getting somebody from point A to point B, that is a stakeholder, or someone we maybe want to work with in the future. So I think it's important that we take time to actually recognize those different stakeholders and start making a list. Maybe when you think of one association, another organization or something comes about. So I think this is also something that is always changing, and it's like a living document, right? Like we can go back and maybe add to the list, take away from the list, whatever we do. I think this is something that's always changing. So we've determined who our stakeholders are, and now we're going to figure out how to actually tell that story. So a couple things. Research says that your story needs to connect with your stakeholders. It needs to be clear, concise, complete, and correct. Always make it relatable, and the consistency is key. And for this, I just wanted to reference Baumeister. The idea of self-identity explains that we remember more when it's relatable. So I think a big part of going back to the handout we just worked through was when we think about our stakeholders, think about the vocabulary in which they use on a daily basis. Don't use words that they might not be familiar with, because that's not going to resonate with them. Using words that they actually use on a daily basis, they're going to be more likely to connect. I know as soon as I have a personal connection to something I read or something I watch, I feel as if I can put myself in that position to be able to actually relate. So, I mean, that relatability piece goes so far, and the consistency piece as well. I'll give you a quick example of when I was doing this. Over the summer, I had worked with our Ag and Natural Resources team to come up with a mission statement. And we, for the life of us, like, everybody had something else they wanted to include because ag is so big. And then we finally were like, okay, what is it the audience wants from us? How can we relate to all of these people, not just a small portion of the state or the group that we're trying to reach? And then the consistency piece, make sure everyone is telling that consistent story and that your story is consistent. Because if I tell you that I do something on Monday, and then when you see me the next time, maybe Friday, I'm telling you a different thing, then the audience is confused. So finding that consistency is very key as well. All right, so identifying that time and place to share your story. So I would like for you guys to maybe unmute yourselves or put in the chat box the best time that you think is to share your message and how you go about sharing your message. So if we could have a little bit of a conversation to hear just from everybody how we're sharing conversation or sharing our message right now. If anybody wants to go first.
I think this is Pam Pruitt from Arkansas. I think the best time is any time you're talking about what you do and with any groups and with any audiences, because people do get a little confused on what you really do. And sometimes when you say University of blah, 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 and all the things we have to say, which is good, sometimes our identity is almost lost there. So, and then sometimes people only know you from maybe their experience in one facet, like your experience as a 4-H group, or their experience with extension homemakers, or that's what we call them in Arkansas, or a master gardener group, or an ag agent presented something for them, or they went to something with health and wellness. So if we're constantly sharing what our overall message is and so forth, I think that's really, really important. And not just, this is just my class on what this is. You can't make it long and complicated, but I really see the need to do that in our county. And we're actually, as a county, I accidentally muted myself. As a county, we are doing this. We did this exercise similarly. We did it because we're finding that same communication problem that we have as a county office. Mm-hmm. That limits us, so that we're doing that as a group. And then we're working with state staff. Kristen Higgins is on now, and she's one of the staff we're working with. And Emily Smith is another one. And so these are really, I mean, this is just all great. And it's really good to see everybody else is in the same boat we are, which, I mean, is that good or bad? I don't know. But maybe y'all have got it all mastered and can tell us how to do it right.
Thanks for sharing, Pamela. And if anybody has this mastered, please talk with me afterwards so you can start teaching this, or at least somebody can help me figure it out. So I think that's all valid points. And I love people using the chat. I love the answer early and often. Yes, definitely communicate early and often. And then finding opportunities to share that message. I completely agree with that. A couple of things I guess I would hit on is, once again, going back to the handout we just worked through, talk to those stakeholders, figure out what your stakeholders are expecting of you and when they want you to share that message. Kind of going from that to this, those tools to communicate your message. Like I said, talk to those stakeholders. One size does not fit all. I know Gwen is on the call, and what works in my county does not work in her county, and probably never will, just because we're in two completely different parts of the state with different audiences. So definitely very important to continue to check in with those stakeholders and just realize how they want either the message or whatever it is you're trying to get to them. Talk with them, see how they want it. Social media is a great way to tell your story. A lot of us probably have either a county website or at least an extension website that we're telling our story on. What does that say? Can we relate to what is on that website? Once again, it goes back to being consistent. Do you know what's on that website? Because if you ask me right now, I don't know what's on my website, and I should, right? We don't know those big drawn out mission statements that say what it is we do, because we think we do something differently. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all great ways to get your information out. And if you are planning to share on something like that, there are different algorithms out there that you can find out the best time to post your message. They'll actually break it down for you to see when your audience is online. And you can also schedule posts on social media, so it kind of takes the burden off you, and you don't really have to remember to do it. Like I kind of talked about at the beginning, my team makes a lot of videos, and that's how we like to share our message. Once again, not exactly easy for people who don't have high-speed internet, because then they're not able to view the video. Or maybe we're working with an older audience. They're not on technology. They don't care if I make a video, because they're never going to watch it. They want something mailed directly to their house or emailed to their inbox. They don't want to have to click anything. They just want it right there for them. I don't know how much of you still use radio or TV, but I know that used to be a big way we would reach audiences and extension. So if you guys don't mind, maybe put in the chat, feel free to unmute. What tools is it you're using, and how are they working for you? And I guess I also want to add on that question, have you had to change the way you're communicating through the pandemic? Because I think that's really limited kind of the way we were doing things, but maybe for the better. So does anyone want to let us know what tools they're using to get their message out there?
So two things, we have an email, or we have a Facebook group. We do a little bit with LinkedIn. So we're starting to use social media more with a consistent message just for our unit or team or program area. And one thing I do, and I see others do a lot, is in the signature of each email, you can put a tagline or a brief description with your mission.
Yeah, John, thanks for sharing, and I really like that. And kind of going back to the time I worked with the ag program area in my state, the director of the ag program now puts the mission statement at the email signature. And I think that's a great opportunity, because every time you email someone, they have a chance to read that, right? I think it's a very easy way to get our message out there. And if it's always there, people will understand the consistency of it. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at the other screen, but that's where my chat is. So thank you all for putting in the chat. Michael, I love that you can't even find a mission statement on the website. I know for sure ours is on the website, but I have no idea where, because we have so much.
But I found a great description of our work, which was, and one that was neutral to the various entities, which is very different than what I would have expected, because so much of extension, if you've been in long enough, you know, our tentpole programs, ag and 4-H in particular, almost any state is what everybody points to, but it's not all we do. And it's really not all the people in our communities and in our state's need. I'm in West Virginia. It's not like a big ag state, and it's not like we're overrunning with youth compared to older population. I think we battle Florida for the oldest median age. So that the description of what we do, I found very refreshing. Is that our mission? I couldn't tell you.
Yep. Yes, and thank you guys for sharing some of these mission statements. I'll certainly take the chat and look through them because I'm always interested. My big thing on mission statements is it's great, but only if everybody knows what it says. So once again, I go back to if it's not consistent and if your people aren't able to rattle it off when they have an opportunity, I don't really know how much it's doing for us. So that will take me to my next slide. Kind of explaining what this message map is. And this is the tool that I wish we had more time to work on today, but certainly I'll let you guys take it with you. And if you want to talk more, I'm happy to do that. But the Center for Risk Communication analyzed 10 years of print and media coverage for emergencies and crises in the US. And this is what they found. The average length of a soundbite in print media is 27 words. The average duration of a soundbite in broadcast media is 9 seconds. And the average number of messages reported in both print and broadcast media is 3. So what they're saying is people, especially adults and kids, don't have a very long attention span. And so they're saying you have 9 seconds to get your message out. So what is it you do, or what is it you want people to understand you do in 9 seconds? And so the exercise that I'm going to drop into the chat, and I know you guys will not have enough time to go through this, but I want you to at least give it a try. Kind of breaks it down for 3 key messages. So if you go back to the Stakeholders Handout and kind of use those words to come up with your message, that is what I would like for you guys to do. And then we will come back and talk about it. And I will go ahead and put that in the chat. And it's just the first time I did this, I sat there and looked at it and I was like, I certainly can't come up with a message. And don't get too hung up on the words or the seconds or anything like that. But I want you guys to really focus on the key 3 things that you do, what you want people to know you do. Cool, thank you. So that's the 2793 message map. And like I said, the first time I saw that, I sat and looked at it and scratched a bunch of things out and redid it. And it's something that I like to do from time to time, just to remind myself what it is I'm doing and what I want people to think I'm doing. And then am I living that out? And it's once again an opportunity for us to work with those stakeholders or work with the people that we work with. Maybe it's people across the country, or maybe it's people in our own state, or even in our own office. But I think it all comes down to, what are those 3 takeaway points that you want people to remember? If you had an opportunity to ride the elevator with a person and they said, what do you do? This is how we answer it. And like I said, it's one of those things that we get asked all the time, but yet we can't really come up with an answer to get our point across that quickly. And I'll hit just briefly on the social media piece of that. Twitter has only allowed 140 characters since the beginning of their time, which hasn't been that long. But that's also, if you think about it, that's something that you read out loud and it takes about 9 seconds. So we really don't have a lot of time to get our message out there. And that's why I think it's really important that we try and get it down to those 27 words or somewhere right around there. Feel free to take this back to your team and work through it together. And if you come up with a really awesome statement that you want to share with any of us, I'm sure that would be good, because I'm still borrowing ideas from lots of other people. So I hope you guys had an opportunity to work through that. And if you want to talk some more about that, that would be great. We do have a question in the chat here. I'm sure you all can read the question in the chat, but I'll read it out loud from Lisa. Given how many people remember how they felt in the 3 things to remember, do you ever identify any emotional memories of your work? And I'll say I definitely do. I think it kind of goes back to that piece at the beginning, being relatable. Put yourself in their shoes. Make it tug at their heartstrings, right? Because that's what they're going to remember. Tell that story in a way that resonates with them, and maybe it is a little bit emotional at the same time, but relate it to your work, relate it to them, and make them feel like it's something that they want to take with them. Great question. All right, and so just to finish up this whole presentation, think about ways that you plan to be more deliberate and strategic in the ways that you communicate your message going forward. I think there's definitely something to be said for this, and I think all of us can improve the way that we communicate, even if communication is something that we're extremely passionate about and that we think we do a really good job doing. It can always get better. There's no shortage of becoming a better communicator. And honestly, if everybody knew what it is we were doing, no one would ask what extension was. You would just be able, they would say, oh yeah, I know what it is. That's really cool. So there's always ways for us to get better. If this is interesting to you, please reach out to me. If you guys want more information, please drop your email in the chat and I'll get that. I was telling Nicole a couple of days ago, I have a curriculum package on this and it should be done here, hopefully at the beginning of March. So if you guys are interested using any of the slides or any of the handouts for your own audiences, happy to share that with you. I even have agendas. I've got a promotional video. So if anybody wants any info, just feel free to put your email in the chat and I'll follow up with you on that. Like I said, I'm here to learn right there along with you. And I hope that this was helpful to you today. I'm sorry that it was kind of short and I have a lot of things to work through, but this is just a longer presentation that I'm trying to figure out how to deliver virtually, which is sometimes difficult. One more thing, Nicole put it in the chat, but if you all could take time to evaluate the work I did today, I would certainly appreciate it. Just like all of you, Ohio State always wants us to evaluate our work to see how we can get better. And I specifically am very passionate about that because I think there's always room for improvement. So with that, thank you so much. And I'll stick around for if anybody wants to chat real quick. But other than that, I hope you all have a great afternoon and that you stay warm. And thanks for coming.
Fantastic, Kenzie. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments like to offer?
I think I stopped the share, so you don't have to look at that anymore.
And don't forget also the general NACDEP evaluation.
Certainly.
Yep, hopefully you all caught that. Yeah, so there's the eval for Kenzie from Ohio State, and then under that is the eval short survey from NACDEP Member Services. So I definitely want to thank you all for being here today. Yeah, it was really some great tools. Very well done. All right. Also want to just put a plug in for next month's Wednesday webinar. It's happening on March 17th. Seizing Opportunities for Community Readiness, and our lead presenter from Michigan State, Eric Walcott. So please put that on your calendars. I'm sure there'll be a reminder coming out from NACDEP, couple reminders. So hope you'll be able to join us for that as well. So again, thank you, Kenzie. Everybody, please go to the evaluation for Kenzie. Says go.osu.edu, and then short survey from NACDEP.